Ted Cruz, who's a big MAGA guy. Ted Cruz, of course, ran against Trump in 2016, but Ted Cruz was a sitting senator from Texas for the entire Biden administration, where they sent over 12 million people into his state illegally over the border. Now, if Ted Cruz had held like a press conference every week and said to the governor of his state, Greg Abbott, I'm the senator from Texas, our state's being invaded, it's an entry point for the country, this is destroying Texas and America, mobilize the National Guard today and seal that border. And if that precipitates a conflict with the federal government, so be it. This is illegal, it's immoral, and it's going to wreck this country. National Guard exists for a reason, use it now. If he'd done that, that would have happened, but he didn't. Because he was busy serving his masters in another country, which is not our country. And that is true not just of Ted Cruz, who's the most kind of pathetic, craven example, but of so many Republican politicians. They didn't want closed borders because their donors didn't want closed borders. Of course, they were all in on the war on terror, and they refused even to look backwards and assess whether or not what they had advocated for had succeeded. They were all in on the Iraq war, like I was. But the difference is they refused to admit that they were wrong. And millions of people died as a result of that, of their being wrong. And our treasury was emptied and the US dollar devalued completely to the point where gold is over 4,000 today. Why is that? Maybe because we spent like $6 trillion on the war on terror, got nothing out of it. We sent pallets of cash to warlords in various countries. What do we get out of that? Nothing. We armed the Taliban. What do we get out of that? Nothing. The whole thing was insane. If you can't say that was bad, if you can't say I'm sorry for supporting that, you're a deeply corrupt person. And Trump called them out and they hated him for it. As to globalization, they benefited from it. Of course, they're tools of the finance class. Of course, every one of them. They had no real interest in ending that. And on free speech, perhaps most shamefully of all, the Republican Party's core institutions, its publications, National Review, the New York Post, Fox News, whatever, its think tanks, too many even to mention, all of them acted not as guardians of free speech, pushing the limits of acceptable discourse, encouraging people to open their minds and think creatively about what's best for the country. No, they acted as scolds, as crossing guards, forcing their fellow conservatives to shut up and get back in lane. That's the whole career of William F. Buckley, was telling fellow conservatives that's not acceptable. They weren't for free speech. They were just the opposite. They were censors. And Trump exposed all of that. And they hated him for it. All of them. There are very few Republican office holders in 2016 or 2020 or 2024 or even right now in October of 2025 who sincerely like Trump. They hate Trump because he represents everything they're opposed to. They hate Trump, including people who work for Trump, hate Trump. And some of them said it out loud. Here's one of Trump's new best friends back in 2016 explaining how much he hates Donald Trump.
At some point, you got to stand up to it. I do not like bullies, and I never have. So I will not be voting for Donald Trump, and he can thank Roger Stone. And if they piss me off one more time, I'm going to urge millions and millions of you, should he get the nomination, not to vote for him either. I'm very serious about this.
Mark Levin is very serious about this. So why was Mark Levin mad? Why was he so mad? Why was Bill Kristol so mad? They were both kind of for Trump, actually. I remember very well. I knew them. And a lot of other people in Washington, very much like them. Why were they so mad at Trump? Well, that was early April of 2016. That was a few weeks after Trump announced at that earlier referenced primary debate in South Carolina that the Iraq War was a mistake. Whoa, that was too far. Because any politician who will acknowledge that the Iraq War was a mistake probably won't get on board with the future Iraq War. And that's all they cared about, was more Iraq wars, waged on behalf of another country, its interest, not ours. Irrelevant the damage to the United States, irrelevant the cost, irrelevant the death toll. They wanted politicians who would do that again, and anyone who called it a mistake probably wouldn't. And so it's just worth remembering that some of Donald Trump's staunchest allies, the ones always telling you, lecturing you about MAGA and telling you who's in, who's out, you're not MAGA, you're not MAGA. Those very same people disagree with every single one of Donald Trump's 5 stated rationales for running, and much more important than that, all 5 reasons that tens of millions of Americans voted for him. They don't just disagree with Trump, they disagree with the bulk of the country who want these things badly. And those people are now telling you, oh, you're not MAGA. This is the pigs and the men becoming indistinguishable in the final scene of Animal Farm. And again, it's organic. This happens to all institutions. It will happen unless someone stops it, unless there is a clear and persistent and repeated articulation of what we're doing here. What is this about? Is it about one guy? No, it's not. Sorry. It's not about one guy. A guy to whom most of us will always be grateful for articulating vitally important principles out loud, being the first one in my lifetime to do so. God bless you for doing that. But it's bigger than any person. It's about the survival of the country. And it's about these 5 facts, these principles, these pillars. That's what MAGA is. And so you can measure anybody who claims to lead the movement against those 5 things because they don't change until they're fixed, which they have not been. So we thought it'd be worth checking in with one of Donald Trump's earliest supporters, someone who supported Donald Trump not because she thought he was super charismatic or so great or hilarious, but she, in addition to those qualities, she agreed with all 5 things. Marjorie Taylor Greene was a business owner in Georgia in 2016 who was at the first Trump rallies that year, continued going to Trump rallies, and by the end of Trump's first term was so inspired by Donald Trump and what he was saying that she ran for Congress. And she, unlike most of her colleagues in that body, actually meant it. And because they could smell that she meant it, because sincerity is by far the most dangerous quality in Washington, someone who really means it is an actual threat. Thomas Massie isn't a threat because he won't accept AIPAC money. Thomas Massie is a threat because he won't accept AIPAC money on principle. Not because he hates Jews or hates Israel. He doesn't. But because he doesn't think American politicians should be bought by foreign countries. That's against his principles. And because he really means it, he can't be bought. So, of course, he must be destroyed. And now Marjorie Taylor Greene, who of all 535 members of the 435 members of House of Representatives, embodies most purely those principles. And she has cleaved to those principles. She has stuck to them through the years. And for that is now being written out of the movement by MAGA stalwarts like Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham and Mark Levin, none of whom agree with a single word Trump says and all of whom hate him. So we thought it'd be interesting to talk to her and ask, will it succeed? Will you be kicked out of the movement that you are a core part of? I don't know. Let's ask her. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia joins us now.
Hi, Tucker.
Congresswoman, thanks so much for doing this. So I keep reading that you are not representative of MAGA, and that's why I want to have this conversation, because I just want to get on tape before Wikipedia erases the past completely and we have no reference points, that you are not a latecomer to the Trump phenomenon, correct?
Oh no, I've been on the Trump train since 2015. Back when I was just a regular person, didn't even have an idea about running for Congress. As a matter of fact, he laid out those 5 pillars, and I was listening to these clips of Donald Trump, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that man. And those are all the reasons I supported him from the very beginning when he stood on that stage among 17 Republican presidential candidates, and the rest of them I thought were slimy politicians, but Donald Trump spoke the language that I understood, and he was the one that made sense to me.
You know that Trump is really hated by your colleagues and by almost every single person in Washington. Not every single. There are people at the White House who sincerely love Trump. I know that to be true. But the overwhelming majority of Republicans in Washington secretly hate Trump, and they're too afraid of him to say so, but they hate him. Lindsey Graham, obviously. Ted Cruz really hates him. Mark Levin openly hates him. But they hate him because they don't agree. And you know that because in the last 10 years, there has been, other than you and Massie and a few others, there have been almost no elected officials in Washington to articulate what exactly MAGA is about. Have you noticed that?
That's absolutely correct. 1,000%. MAGA, let's take that acronym. There's only one country in MAGA, and it's America. And I can tell you right now, I want to expand on how much Republicans hate Donald Trump. I became a member of Congress in January of 2021. I had only been sworn in for 3 full days when January 6th happened. And I can tell you firsthand, every single Republican there in Congress literally turned their back on Donald Trump after January 6th. And he didn't even do it. He had nothing to do with what happened that day. He didn't cause it. It was, it was a Fedsurrection. Antifa was involved. And then many of these poor people got swept up and went into the Capitol. And it was myself, Matt Gaetz, and a few others. We were the only ones that stayed, said that he's our president. He's the leader of the Republican Party. The American people will not abandon him. I did not abandon him. As a matter of fact, I fought my own Republican colleagues for years, literally years, until he finally won the primary in 2024. That was when they literally begrudgingly started saying, okay, I support Donald Trump. He's our nominee. And they still hated him. They absolutely hated him. I can remember Mike Lawler coming up and saying, he hated Donald Trump openly, used to make fun of him all the time. And then all of a sudden, after Donald Trump won in 2024, he finally decided it was time to put on a MAGA hat. It just made me sick. But these people are so fake. The only reason that they kiss up to Donald Trump, our president, the only reason they kiss up to him is because they're terrified of a Truth Social post, because they're terrified of their own constituents that fully support a MAGA, that fully support America First, and fully support everything that Donald Trump has laid out now for years and years. And, Americans got to the point where electing Donald Trump was a referendum on the Republican Party. And I very much feel that, because many times I hate my own party and I blame Republicans for many of the problems that we have today. And I blame them for being so America last, to the point where they are literally slaves to all the big industries in Washington, the military industrial complex, big pharma, health insurance industries, you name it. They are literally slaves to them, and they love the foreign wars so much. But Donald Trump was a referendum to the Republican Party on behalf of the American people, the forgotten man and woman of America that were just so sick of Washington, D.C. And that was me. Absolutely. That has been me the entire time. That's me today, literally serving as a member of Congress. And that's why people see me push back on my own party.
You ever feel like the end of the month, all of your money's gone? Where'd it go? Well, one of the places it went is to unnecessary subscriptions. You probably have a lot of them. One night, for example, you decide to watch a movie, so you download a streaming service that carries it, but then you forget to cancel the service. They're banking on that, by the way. The next weekend, you want to watch a different movie, so you download another streaming service that carries that movie, but you forget to cancel that too. And the next thing you know, you're paying hundreds of dollars a month for subscriptions you forgot you had and don't need. One of the many perils of modern life. We have a solution. We're excited to partner with Rocket Money. It's a great company that can help you fix all of this. It's a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending in a non-judgmental way, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. The app so far has saved users, we estimate, $2.5 billion, including over $880 million in canceled subscriptions alone. 10 million people use Rocket Money and save up to $740 per year when they use all of the app's premium features. It's easy to use. It's super effective. A few clicks and you're done. You save. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/Tucker today. rocketmoney.com/Tucker. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.